when he's such a leading figure in digital. Please welcome Cesar Gon.
Good morning. Just curious, who here can speak Portuguese? Come on, we could change the language, official language of this conference for Portuguese. I'm very proud to be here. I'm from Brazil. I'm co-founder of CI&T. And I've been involved with the Lean community for 11 years now. And I have some perspective to share. I think I'll start saying that I'm very happy that we changed the name of the summit from IT to digital. I love the perspective of what that means. But I would try to convince you that for us, move from IT to digital means move from the CIO or the CTO to the CEO. That's what's behind. We get access to a new agenda and a much more powerful transformation agenda. That's my behind thesis. I'm trying to prove that. Well, in the last 2.5 years, I've been deeply involved with this Lean digital transformation. I kind of tried to define that for you in a few moments. But my involvement with digital has more than 15 years now, and with Lean, 11 years. But finally, I think somehow we could combine this two apparently different disconnect subjects in a single value proposition. CI&T has now, we were founded in Brazil, Bruno and I, Bruno, my partner, is there, 23 years ago as a software development company. And I don't know what we are now. We can try to figure out together. And now we have office and operations in Brazil, US, London, China, and Japan, and one guy in Australia. 45% of the business is still in Brazil, but now US is our largest market, with also around 45% of the business. And we have 10% of the business in the other parts of the world. And basically, we are software developers, designers, and technical and business specialists work with large, complex companies. We like to say that we learn from the battlefield. We're working with very complex, large Brazilian and multinational, international companies. And we have been doing so for 23 years now. So I kind of divide CI&T history in 3 different chapters. The first one is from the beginning, 1995, the first year that internet was available for the companies, for the big companies. And we were born as a software engineer company, very niche focused company. And the first 10 years building this company, we were embracing, I don't know how familiar you are with capability model, CMM, from the Carnegie Mellon University. We were the first Brazilian company to achieve level 5 in this assessment. And that opened a lot of doors for CI&T, especially was the opportunity to open the company in US, in the United States, was around in 2006. Really, we started having the first US customers in 2004, but in 2006, we opened a subsidiary of CI&T in US. And that moment, we were really translating everything we knew about software development that was based on heavy process, waterfall, getting specification and giving back software solutions to our customers, to a different reality. When we land in US, we discovered the real digital world. Think about that moment. 2007 was the first year of the smartphones. And then we have cloud computing. A little later, we're going to have all the social media impact on digital marketing. And then big data, advanced analytics, machine learning, everything was happening in that moment. And we have to rethink CI&T to that specific market conditions. That was the moment where we translate from a heavy process waterfall company to an agile lean delivery company. I told that story in the lean 6 years ago in the lean IT summit in Paris. And I think I stress how difficult it is to, I kind of think that in the production system is the easiest part of translate from waterfall to agile or lean delivery. But there is the management system that you need to rebuild. And more than that, you need to rethink the leadership style, because command and control is a perfect model for waterfall project-based process, but it's not going to work for autonomous team, when we multifunctional squads. When you use agile or lean, you need to redesign completely the leadership. That was the main challenge that we face from 2007 to the recent years. And I describe that challenge as the chimera, that ugly picture that. As chimera is from the Greek mythology. It's a creator with 3 heads. A lion that I use to call our agile studio. The old gut in the back, that's the waterfall offering we still had. And then the leadership was the snake. The snake was the command and control leadership. And the Chimera crisis was the moment where we were having a very successful moment in the US market, but internally, the company was struggling on how the boss, the leadership, would create value to the teams, to the new organization around squads, multidisciplinary teams, and so on. So, and that was the moment where I had the luck to meet John Shook and the guys, where is Thompson? And the guys from Lean Institute Brazil, and by around 2010, they joined us and help us to redesign CI&T, lean management, our management system around, of course, creating a lean management system, but mainly rethink about the leadership style of CI&T, how we would migrate from a very command and control company to a lean leadership style company. So that was the second phase, where I think we could embrace the new technology and change the value proposition, not only for delivery software based on the specification, but to get business problems, design, use the new technology to design solutions and help our customer. That was the moment, the main value proposition up to 2016, and specifically on June 2016, the largest company, private company in Brazil, that's the largest bank, Itaú Bank, approached us trying to understand how we migrate from a CMMI level 5 company to an agile with some scale company. And when we told the way we we passed through this transformation, they asked us if we could help them with an experiment on their organization. Think about it's a company with 100,000 employees. And they asked us a pilot for 5,000 employees only. And it would require 300 people from CI&T full-time in a 5 years program. So that was the experiment. We started in June 2016. But based on that, we started with an A3 to really they were looking for digital transformation, but we did a deep dive on the problem to understand what is the real problem they want to solve. And then we designed, for the first time, our Lean Digital Transformation offering. And that was the beginning of a new phase for us. And that's the chapter I'm gonna describe from now on. And that's again, a very drastic transformation on CI&T, and I think it's for good. We have this new agreement with the big bank, and 6 months later, they start to promote us as partners in their digital transformation, and that was that generated a moment for us in the local Brazilian market. And we designed, after 6 months, we decided that as we are being approached by the CEOs of a lot of large companies, we need to rethink our message and our value proposition for these guys. And I'm counting the number of CEOs that want to talk with a software company in Brazil, and in the last 20 months, we have 86 CEOs from the largest companies in Brazil visiting our headquarters near São Paulo to discuss digital transformation. And then I have a chance to introduce the Lean Digital Transformation as a concept and a way to help them. And it's if you think about it, it's an average of 1 CEO per week. So during this 20 months, I talked to more CEOs than in the previous 20 years of leading CI&T. So it was a huge opportunity for us, and we designed a whole new value proposition around this opportunity. What I'm doing, I will do now is basically brief you the kind of message I'm giving to these business leaders, so you can get a sense of how we connect the dots between lean and digital and the idea that you need to transform your company. Basically, we define lean digital transformation as translating the lean thinking that we all love, right? That's why we are here, to the digital context, to this century where digital is transforming every single industry. And we add, as a cornerstone, the design. You're going to see that I think it's a fundamental part when you combine the A3 problem-solve mind with the design problem-solve methods, practices in a single framework for problem solve. I think this is part of what we did. And finally, we want to convince our customer to see this journey not only to get better apps, websites, e-commerce, digital platforms, but also a way to move from the current culture to a culture focused on learning. That's part of the output of this process of transforming big companies. I said we learn from the battlefield, from the real complex that is inside every single large company, but we also connect with reference source concepts from the Lean community and from other sources. I recommend you take a look at this book if you not know one of them. But what I start saying for the CEOs is that, okay, there's a lot of new digital technology possibilities, but what really changed was our behavior as consumers. The way we decide for buying a service or a product, or the way we relate to the brands now is completely different from what we were doing 10 years ago. So that's the main, really a drastic change in the marketing. And if you think about our kids or our grandkids, you're gonna see that it's radically different the way they relate with the brands, with the big names that are around in the market. There's now a lot of volatility, a lot of ambiguity, the way a consumer is connected to any service or product. And that changes everything for the large companies. And when they see the kind of volatility in the consumer, in the customer, in the client, they realize that they are slow by design. They are not designed to really move in the speed that is necessary to fulfill the demanding customers of today. And they are completely non-designed for learning. They don't learn nothing from our feedback as customers. And of course, all CEOs and business leaders knows that they need to transform, they need to do the digital transformation buzzword, and there's a lot of playbooks in the market, right? 5 steps for digital transformation, and a list of things that if you do this, if you send your executives to the Silicon Valley, if you do a lot of design thinking, if you do Agile, Scrum in your IT, if you open an incubator, if you acquire some startups, you're going to transform yourself. I think it's an illusion of innovation. I joke that the CEO is playing with squirrels, small squirrels, but he still sit on top of the big snail that is the company. So it's just things that are good for the stage, so they can look more modern, more digital, but there is no real impact for the company or for the consumers of the company. And why it's so hard for a big company to really fulfill the customer expectations. If you look about, and normally we measure that in the first A3 we do for them, how long they take for an idea to the customer hands. If you think about a big bank, we are talking about 3 years for launching a new product or a new services, or even to improve considerably the digital experience we have with the bank. It's the same for a retailer, it's the same for an airline company. It's because if you think about the dozens of departments, areas, gates, and bureaucracy to get an idea and test this idea in the customer hand, you're going to see how hard it is to be innovative in a big, complex company. And there's this frustration for the customer, but also there's maybe a much more hard problem that there's no learning in this, because it's so slow that nobody remembers what were the hypotheses 2 years ago for that strategy. So, and you're going to see that IT is always part of the problem, right? There's capacity problem, there's bottlenecks, but we always measure that IT is less than 1/30 or 30% of the problem. The lead time is is related to a lot of other things besides IT. If you look the efficiency, the flow efficiency, you're going to see 5% real work being done during these 2-3 years of flow. So, and if you zoom out in this picture, then you open the Pandora box of large companies, right? You have legacy system, mainframes. You have dozens of departments. You have the very silos, command and control, and a lot of people trying to do innovation around the company. But it's really a toxic environment for people to unlock their potential. It's the current situation of almost every large organization I know. And I joke here that, do you think that putting more IT capacity is going to solve your problem? Do you think that if you apply machine learning in this picture, it's going to solve your problem? That is the moment where I make the link with the culture. If you don't think your root cause is the culture that is behind the way the organizations work, you're not going to solve, you'll not move your company from reliability, predictability, to be fast, to be innovative. That is the only movement that makes sense in the digital center, right? So that is the link with Lean, because every single CEO knows that he has a culture or she has a culture problem. But the problem is how I change culture. That's the link with Lean. I think Lean has a proven record on changing culture. This is, I think everyone here knows the article from John Shook, from the experience of bringing Toyota to US through the joint venture with General Motors, and everything they learned in this experiment. And I think the crucial part of this article and Lean as a tool for changing culture is the idea that you don't, of course you want to be more innovative, more fast and so on, but if you just declare that as a CEO and expect that people is gonna reflect on this new culture, change their values, and then finally change the way they do the daily work, it's not gonna happen, right? So the Lean digital transformation cornerstone is that you need to change the daily work of people, and that's gonna change the behaviors, the values, the attitudes, and finally, you have a new culture in place. That's the fundamental stone of what we believe is a transformation program. And this is me trying to convince John Shook that digital is the future of Lean. And I'm not sure if I think I did a lot of progress on that, right, Thompson? But what I'm pitching is that we can translate Lean from the last century to this century if we think that Lean was a very smart way to solve the production obsession bottleneck of last century. A countermeasure to the mass production, and of course we have the iconic Toyota and then General Electric as iconic companies pursuing the production obsession. But we are now in a moment where I think the current challenge for every single large company is customer obsession. And now we have a new set of iconic companies. I think now Amazon, and I'm saying that I think there is more to learn now from Amazon than from Toyota. We have all these Lean principles and the background and everything that happened since Toyota created the Toyota production system, share it with the world. But now I think there is a different game in place, And I think we should pay attention on Amazon and Google. Of course, it's still following the learnings from Toyota, but I think now it's more about how we scale a culture focused on innovation and learn to the size of 500,000 people that Amazon has, for example. And now it's more about real disruption, how you use the new technology possibilities to be 10 times better than just continuous improving. So there is really an opportunity for, in your customer's perspective, improve the service, the speed, the quality, the experience by 10 times, not small incremental changes. This is how digital helps Lean to really be relevant in this digital center. And customer obsession is defined by Amazon, is the #1 principle of Amazon. And we see as a combination of speed. So you need to be fast, you need to have a velocity, with customer understanding by data, with the ability, the new corporate competence of creating experience, digital and non-digital experience. I think this is the new game of customer obsession. You need to be speed, you need to be based on data that is really connect to your customer, to this every single customer, and then you need to be very good on design experience for your customer. And we see, and that was the result of that first A3 we did for the big bank. We define Lean Digital Cornerstones as a small set of process, practice, or tools that's going to change human behavior. And we organize the Lean Digital Cornerstones around 3 groups of cornerstones. I think one is kind of obvious, that you need to change the way you design and you deliver your technical, your digital solutions. It's the production system that you need to redesign around the Lean and Agile principles. But it's not going to be sustainable in a large, complex organization if you do not rethink the management system. And then the idea that you also have to redesign completely your management system. And then finally, it's not going to be sustainable if you don't call the HR people and change the way you develop your leadership. That's the Lean Leadership Development Group of Cornerstones. So that's these 3 pieces in our puzzle is what we consider the main pillars of a Lean digital transformation. And then you change the way you do strategic planning using Hoshin Kanri with a lot of design thinking embedded, and you redesign the whole. I think this is most visible part. You redesign your teams around the value streams. You create your tribals. You connect with a different flow of leadership. Then you change you make the management system visible through visual management. By the way, in that corner, we have Gene Womack and Mark Rich visiting CI&T. And that was 1 week after we signed the contract with the bank. And I think it was Gene said something like, if you survive, I would like you to talk at the Lean Transformation Summit in March next year, and tell us what was the first learnings of the 6 months of trying to change such a huge organization as the bank. And I did that. I was proud to present the early finds of this transformation last year in San Diego during the Lean Digital Lean Transformation Summit is the name, right, of their event. So that's the way we see. You can get your customer obsession, speed, customer experience, and customer understand if you create a lean nucleo core based on a new production system, a new management system, and a new way to develop your leadership. That is the conceptual framework we create. And finally, we believe that, of course, it's a journey, especially if you are considering a huge, large organization. But to survive in this large companies, you need to deliver results in very frequently in very short time frame. So we always design the transformation programs, even if it's 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. But every quarter, every 3 months, you need to have concrete bottom line results. And of course, you have the learnings, you have the maturity of the process, the tools you are introducing, but you always need something to show that is you are improving the bottom line of the company. That's a practice that's guaranteed that you're going to survive to the ups and downs of a huge, large organization. And also, instead of start from areas or departments, it's better to select some subjects or value stream and do it end to end. So instead of starting from IT or from the marketing or from any logistics department, you select one problem that touches the customer and you do the whole end-to-end changes to make that really move from 10 times to be 10 times better. That's what we do. And we talk about skin in the game, because another thing that is very usual in large companies is people doing a lot of things, a lot of work in progress per person. So we prefer, I think it's a good, it's more than good, it's a fundamental practice that you put less people, but full-time people in these programs. And then you have the right commitment and space for making real progress in very short period of time. We call the camp by camp strategy. And as this used to be the IT, and I was talking about other things instead of IT, I include a subject here. I think everybody knows that software is eating the world, right? It's amazing to be a software professional in a moment where every single company is looking at software and digital and technology as a strategic weapon. And this, by the way, this is the Mark Anderson article in the Wall Street Journal, 2011. I think it's a seminal article about the importance of software in the future. And everybody asks if there is any room for the traditional software development life cycle, the famous SDLC. I think no, it's dead. If it's not dead, it's just walking dead inside large companies. You should really consider that it's something that's not going to be, not should be here anymore, right? But I think it's what I would like to stress is I think there's a revolution inside the digital revolution, and I think the seed for that is the DevOps concept. I think probably everybody knows DevOps conceptually is easy, right? You connect in a single flow the build and run activities. There's no brain. It's hard to understand. But I think if we double click on that, and if you talk to the current DevOps engineer, you're going to see that there is a whole new world of tools, methods, practices. It's a golden rush. There's huge movement of companies trying to address different phases of this a new flow of build and run. But more than that, I think there is an opportunity to really redesign the nature of coding software. I think this is the beginning of, for the first time in decades, we changed the way the programmer do their daily work in a very radical way. And I think we have early numbers on that. In the context where we could get end-to-end DevOps connect with everything I will present early, I think we have not 10, but 100 times better. It's amazing the rework reducing from 20%, that is a typical rework in an agile team, to less than 1%. It's amazing the test automation going from 30% coverage, that's a good number in a good agile environment, to 95% of test coverage, automated test coverage. So it's a lot of, and the quality improvement is also incredible. So I think we don't have numbers and experience enough to assure, but I think there is now a big bet from our side that if we connect this early stage DevOps to the whole lean digital framework, we have a revolution inside the lean digital revolution. And the possibility to really do A/B tests or feature toggle or the culture of experimentation by design inside the coding activity is something we can talk during the coffee, if you would, more perspective on that. Going back to the CEO perspective, I think we are running now about 12 lean digital transformation programs with large companies. And somehow, I think there are, in the CEO perspective, there are probably around, we can see around 3 main reasons why they are embracing digital transformation inside their companies. The first is business agility at scale. That was the main source of need from Itaú, for example, where the pain is time to market, is the lead time from ideas to the customer hand. But also there is a set of companies seeing digital transformation as a way to redesign the company around the customer centricity concept. That's another challenge, especially for very well succeed companies in the last century that now are struggling to understand what's happened with my brand and with my products in the market. And finally, I think there's a third group. There are companies that are looking at the new technology possibilities as a way to leverage new revenue source, creating new digital business or digital platforms that will be representative in terms of new revenue streams. That's so by these 12 different programs that we are running, I think we can safely organize around these 3 broad need in the CEO perspective. And I mentioned John Shook as one of the masters that helped me during the transition from CI&T and my personal transition from command and control to to a more lean leadership style. And I have the honor to receive 3 months ago John Shook at CI&T for our Gamble Walk. And at the end of the day, I asked him a statement about everything we have seen or saw and discussed during the day. And he generally, he could kindly record 30 seconds of a statement, and I would like to share with you. If we could play the video, please.
I finally had a chance to visit CI&T here in Brazil. And this is a day I've been looking forward to for several years. Over that time, I've been steadily informed in different ways from different people about what's happening in this company. And I don't know much about software. I don't know much about the digital revolution that's happening. I hear about it all the time, every day. And finally today, several things came together. I had a chance to visit this company I've wanted to visit and to see the wonderful things that are taking place. And I also kind of finally got my head around what digital transformation is and what lean digital or digital lean transformation is as well. And I think it's an incredibly powerful thing. It's happening here these last couple of years, I think, as CI&T has evolved from a software developer into something different, something more. I don't even know what it is. I'm not sure what your company is anymore. You're not a consulting company, you're not just a software company, but you're a company that has the power to be able to change the world in positive ways.
Thank you. And as a final word, I truly believe that we are still a software company, but we evolve for I think, to give a contribution that goes beyond IT or digital. That's related to unlock not only business and tech potential, but especially human potential, people potential. I think changing the large organizations to be a better environment for people to really do a good job is what motivates us, is our purpose now as we see CI&T now. So that's my message. Thank you.